de l'épicerie abordable dans des quartiers sécuritaires. Mais après 11 ans des libéraux, tout coûte plus cher. Pourquoi? Parce que les libéraux ont doublé la dette et en doublant la dette, ils ont doublé les files d'attente aux banques alimentaires et le coût du logement. Des banquiers centrales comme Mark Carney ont dit « Ne vous inquiétez pas, on peut simplement imprimer l'argent et ça va coûter rien. » En fait, ça a coûté très cher, avec la pire inflation en 40 ans. C'est une autre erreur économique de M. Carney, parmi beaucoup. Ce n'est pas une erreur pour lui personnellement, ça a gonflé les profits de Brookfield et des grands banquiers ont gagné beaucoup d'argent en appauvrissant monsieur et madame tout le monde. Les milliardaires, les banquiers, les bureaucrates, la bureaucratie sont devenus beaucoup plus riches lorsque les Canadiens sont devenus beaucoup plus pauvres. Plus que le gouvernement dépense, plus que tout coûte plus cher. Demain, les libéraux de Mark Carney vont faire la même chose avec leur budget à crédit. Ils vont financer leurs dépenses incontrôlées avec la carte de crédit nationale, ce qui va forcer les Canadiens à payer leurs factures avec leur carte de crédit personnelle. Ça va obliger les Canadiens de payer plus, comme toujours. Quand M. Carney est devenu Premier ministre, le déficit pour l'année dernière était de 42 milliards de dollars. Demain, il va présenter un déficit pour l'année dernière d'à peu près 60 milliards de dollars, probablement le plus élevé dans l'histoire du pays, à l'exception du période de COVID. Demain, on va voir aussi que le déficit que Justin Trudeau avait prévu allait être 31 milliards de dollars. Demain, on va voir une augmentation. Et M. Carney va vous demander de la couvrir des loges, parce que, avec quelques ajustements comptables et à cause de l'inflation qui gonfle les revenus du gouvernement, il aura fait augmenter le déficit un peu moins que prévu. Peu importe ce que dit M. Carney, il fait des gros déficits, des plus gros déficits que Justin Trudeau. La hausse du déficit, ce n'est pas la faute des tarifs non plus. Non, c'est à cause des augmentations de dépenses de 90 milliards de dollars, des nouvelles dépenses nettes, au-delà des économies promises, au-delà des dépenses de Justin Trudeau, avec 2/3 de ces dépenses pour les opérations jour à jour et non pas pour le capital, selon les directeurs parlementaires du budget. Les opérations du gouvernement augmentent en coût de 9 % dans les 11 mois enregistrés de ce premier ministre. On va voir encore que M. Carney va faire un budget à crédit des libéraux. C'est plus de dettes, plus de coûts, plus d'impôts, plus de la même chose parce que M. Carney est juste un autre libéral. Ça garantit que nos petites entreprises et nos entrepreneurs vont faire face aux bâtons dans les rues. Ils vont être empêchés et on va continuer d'avoir le pire investissement dans le G7. Les autres pays ont des fonds souverains. Et pour ça, il faut avoir des fonds. La Norvège, Singapour, l'Arabie saoudite, ils accumulent des surplus pour les investir. Mark Carney n'a pas de surplus pour investir. Il a les déficits, donc il n'a pas de fonds pour mettre dans son fonds. M. Carney a des déficits, il veut un fonds de dette et non pas d'investissement. Il veut ajouter 25 milliards de dollars de plus à notre carte de crédit nationale pour parier sur un fonds libéral qui va enrichir des élites bien connectées comme lui. La réalité, c'est qu'il y a des billions de dollars d'investissements provenant du Canada, mais qui sont investis à l'extérieur du Canada. 1 billion de dollars, selon la Banque royale, a fui notre pays. C'est les fonds privés. 1,3 billion de dollars de nos fonds de pension sont investis à l'extérieur. En fait, la majorité des fonds de nos pensions sont investis à l'extérieur déjà. Il n'y a pas une pénurie de fonds, c'est que ces fonds fuient de notre pays à cause des politiques anti-développement, les taxes et les impôts des libéraux. Il faut il faut enlever les libéraux du chemin pour permettre ces fonds privés d'investir au Canada et grandir notre pays. C'est comme ça que nous allons devenir plus abordables chez nous, plus sécuritaires chez nous et plus forts chez nous. Thank you very much. We're here today with the Conservative team to restate our mission to make Canada affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home. We want to restore the promise of Canada where anybody who works hard gets an affordable home and food in safe neighborhoods in a strong and self-reliant nation. Filling up your gas tank should feel routine again, not a source of stress. Walking through grocery aisles should be enjoyable. When food is affordable, families can focus on what's going into their fridge, not what's coming out of their bank accounts. Parents should enjoy chauffeuring their kids to soccer and hockey without worrying about how much it will cost to get to the rink or the field. Young couples should be able to make a big down payment on an affordable home that they can pay off in 15 years while imagining future children playing in their big, open backyard and also going on family vacations that will forge beautiful memories. These are things that Canadians took for granted 11 years ago. But after 11 years of this Liberal government, everything costs more. Work doesn't pay, housing costs have doubled, and our food bank lineups go around the block. And that is because the Liberals were elected on the illusion that they could spend money we did not have without consequence, and that they could borrow and print endlessly to pay for it. Central bankers like Mark Carney made the appalling and embarrassing error of saying, if you run out of money, just print more, it's free. Well, it wasn't free. Carney's advice gave both the UK and Canada the worst inflation in 40 years. Of course, Brookfield's profits were expanded and inflated, but so was the cost of living for everyone else. Doubling the national debt in the last 10 years, as the Liberals have done, simultaneously doubled housing costs and food bank lineups. It gave higher inflation and more pain. Bankers, billionaires, and bureaucracies got rich off all the printed money, and everyone else got poor. Printed money for Liberal deficits bid up the cost of everything. The more they spend, the more things cost. Most of the spending went to welfare for the well-connected and the well-off, while workers, small businesses, and seniors paid the price. Tomorrow, the Carney Liberals will double down on the costly credit card budgeting that got us into this mess in the first place. They will pay for their uncontrolled spending on the national credit card, driving up the cost of living and forcing Canadians to pay for their expenses on their personal credit cards. When Mark Carney became Prime Minister, last year's deficit was projected to be $42 billion. Now, we expect it to be as much as $60 billion. When he became Prime Minister last year, this year's deficit was projected to be $31 billion. Now, it could be well over $50 billion. So tomorrow we will learn how much higher it is under Carney than it was under Trudeau. But expect an illusion. Carney will ask you to shower him with praise, because with a little help from accounting revisions and inflated revenues, he will report that he grew the deficit a little bit less than he first expected. Either way, he's running bigger deficits than Justin Trudeau. No one thought it was possible for anyone to be more reckless than Trudeau until this Prime Minister came along and said, hold my champagne. The growing deficit is not the result of tariffs, but of the $90 billion of net new spending Mr. Carney has brought in, above and beyond promised savings and above and beyond the spending Trudeau was already doing. 2/3 of that new spending is going to day-to-day operations, not investments. Operating spending is up 9.1% according to the February Fiscal Monitor. That's just in 11 months, by the way. And so the money is not going to investment. What we're seeing with Carney's costly credit card budgeting is more debt, more costs, more taxes, more of the same. Mark Carney is just another Liberal. He's driving investment out of our country, and don't ask me to prove it. Just read the Financial Times, which issued a damning piece on Mark Carney's economic record 1 year in. I'm quoting, Canada's leading industry groups say Prime Minister Mark Carney's efforts to cut red tape is floundering, costing the economy billions more in trade losses than President Trump's tariffs. Derek Nybor, president of the Forest Products Association, said, quote, over the past decade, overlapping government policies, mostly environmental regulations, have chilled strategic investments and become a productivity and a competitiveness killer, driving away investment. Quote, "I've heard of resource projects that require hundreds of permits due to federal, provincial, and municipal governments," said David Pierce, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce Vice President of Government Relations. Dan Kelly, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business President, said the regulatory reform agenda, quote, "remains stalled. Ottawa is focused on helping a few big players, while with every other unwashed business owner stuck in the old, unworkable system." He cites $51 billion in annual compliance costs in Carney's Canada. And then there's Carney's allusion, let me quote here, There's been a disconnect between statements and implementation," said Brian Kingston, president of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. The most damning part of the article is this, quote, "This week, Rogers Communications, one of Canada's top two telecommunications companies, announced approximately $1 billion worth of spending cuts, or 30%, blaming it on punitive regulatory environment." Another Carney failure, also reported by the Financial Times. Good to see the overseas media is willing to cover the reality here. In November of last year, Saskatchewan-based Nutrient, the world's largest potash fertilizer producer, announced plans to build a $1 billion port in Longview, Washington, over Canada's west coast, citing regulations as a key factor. Finally, Financial Times says a mine in Canada takes 20 years to build, according to S&P Global. They also point out that a tentative agreement signed in November between Ottawa and Alberta to build a 1 million barrel a day pipeline missed an April deadline. Industry blames regulatory hurdles, a costly decarbonization requirement, and the lack of clarity around carbon pricing. Some of the countries around the world, you will note, have sovereign wealth funds. You need to have wealth for those funds. Norway, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia run big budget surpluses, which they accumulate and then put into their sovereign wealth funds. Carney has no surplus and therefore no wealth to put in such a fund. He's talking about a sovereign debt fund. He wants to put another $25 billion on the national credit card to gamble on a Liberal slush fund that will enrich Liberal insiders at the expense of hardworking Canadians. How many corporate welfare agencies do the Trudeau-Carney Liberals need to create before they learn that it doesn't work? They have the Canada Infrastructure Fund. Remember the Infrastructure Bank? Remember that was going to invest in all these projects? What happened with that? There's a new Defence Industry Bank. There's the Canada Growth Fund, and countless other departmental agencies that Liberals have created and grown over the last decade to give us the worst investment and growth in the G7. And here we are. It's déjà vu all over again. Borrowing yet another $25 billion out of the economy to subsidize projects that the government still cannot figure out how to approve will only cost hardworking Canadians. Multinational corporations get the profit, taxpayers will get the loss. Let's ask some basic questions. Who will get the money? Small and medium-sized businesses? Of course not. It will be the billionaires and bankers that will go to Mark Carney's elite summit coming up in September. They will again get rich, making everyone else poor. That guarantees small businesses and entrepreneurs get shut out, and politically powerful corporations get carve-outs, handouts, and bailouts. And here's another question. If a project has a business case, why would the government need to fund it? If it doesn't have a business case, why would the government want to fund it? And why can't projects get funding now? Is it because investment doesn't exist? Of course not. There's $1 trillion of investment from Canada now invested outside of Canada, according to Royal Bank. In fact, Statistics Canada reported in Q3 of last year that trusteed Canadian pension funds held $1.33 trillion in foreign assets. That is, a majority of Canadian pension funds are now invested outside of Canada. There are more Canadians opening businesses out of Canada than in Canada. The investment exists. It comes from our country. It just can't get a return in our country. Putting another $25 billion on the national credit card to pad a Liberal slush fund will not change that. What we need is for the Liberal government to get out of the way. Get out of the way and repeal the anti-resource law, C-69. Get out of the way and repeal the ban on shipping oil off the BC coast. Get out of the way and scrap the industrial Liberal carbon tax. Get out of the way and approve a pipeline to the Pacific by this summer. Get out of the way and unlock and unblock our economy. That is how we will make Canada the richest, most affordable country anywhere on earth. That is how we will make Canada affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home. Thank you very much.
Que pensez-vous de la décision de M. Alexandre Boulris de quitter le caucus néo-démocrate, siéger comme indépendant et tenter de se faire élire à Québec solidaire?
Je dis bonne chance à mon ami, à M. Boulris. J'ai une bonne relation avec lui personnellement, malgré nos différences évidentes de façon politique et idéologique, mais je lui donne bonne chance et on verra le résultat.
Je comprends que vous, personnellement, vous n'avez pas de l'air enclin à investir dans le fonds souverain. Est-ce que vous auriez préféré, à place de que M. Carney vraiment se concentre sur Bay Street, qu'il soit plus Main Street, qu'il soit plus sur l'abordabilité? Pourriez-vous développer un peu là-dessus?
Oui, absolument, Madame. Vous avez entièrement raison. Je vais pardonner l'anglicisme, mais j'aime ça, le Main Street, au lieu de juste le Bay Street. Comment est-ce qu'on va favoriser les petites et moyennes entreprises? C'est en éliminant la paperasse, les obstacles gouvernementaux, les taxes et les impôts, pour libérer tous les entrepreneurs à réaliser leurs ambitions, au lieu de concentrer la richesse dans la main du gouvernement pour favoriser les grandes entreprises multinationales. C'est ça la liberté d'entreprise au lieu du contrôle étatique de notre économie de M. Carney.
You announced over the weekend that Manitoba would be banning the use of social media and AI chatbots for youth. Minister Miller has said this is something that the government is seriously considering. What is your view on banning social media for kids as a politician and as a parent?
Well, as a parent, I share the same concerns as many parents. Too much screen time, highly addictive algorithms. I always get worried when my kids are more interested in their screen than they are interested in what Dad has to say. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But why are you guys laughing at that? But we're doing some research right now as a team and as a caucus. We're a caucus filled with parents who are very worried about protecting our kids in the modern world. So I'm glad that Mr. Canoe has started the conversation, and as we develop our thinking on it, we'll be sharing it with you. Thank you.
Canadians not to invest their personal money into this fund? Or do you think if they get money on
I think Canadians should be free to invest their personal money where they choose. What I'm worried about is that Mr. Carney is not giving them that freedom. He's forcing them by putting the $25 billion on the national credit card again. He won't have to pay for that. Canadians will. And we know what happens when Liberals put money on the credit card. Canadians get higher grocery bills, higher tax bills, and higher housing bills.
This morning, David came out with a report on anti-Semitism this year, and it echoes the report I talked to you about last week on the Senate Human Rights Committee. Again, an increase in anti-Semitism, and of course, they've recommended their own set of measures to combat this. So they mentioned creating a national emergency task force on combating Jew hatred. They mentioned banning events that incite hatred and incite hatred and also support or glorify terrorism. Do you support those measures? What measures do you support dealing with this issue, and how would you, if you support this, define hate, inciting hatred or inciting terrorism?
Well, I would note that under this Liberal government, hate crimes are up over 200%. They have divided Canadians group against group. They have released criminals onto our streets. They've opened up our borders to terrorists and hate mongers through an out-of-control immigration system, and never before have Jews felt more endangered. We've seen countless terrorist attacks on synagogues, Jewish day schools. We know I have many Jewish friends who are very worried about going out in public with their kippahs, putting their mezuzahs on the doors or their Star of David on their chest. This is outrageous. We need to do more to protect our Jewish community against this hatred and violence. We need to stop allowing hate mongers into Canada. We need to lock up hate criminals. We need to criminalize the promotion of terrorism as defined under anti-terror laws. And we need to take many more steps to make sure that our Jewish brothers and sisters feel always safe and secure here in their home of Canada.
Do you support banning?
Well, that's already banned. We already have a ban on inciting.
How would you define that?
Well, that's already defined in the law, and we think that the answer is not to bring in more censorship, of political speech. The answer is to crack down on terrorists, hate mongers, vandalizers, and other criminals, and to restore some sanity to our system of immigration and justice.
Is that a blurred line between free expression on the political side and so-called hatred and hateful
No,
expression?
because our criminal code has pre-existing definitions of inciting violence against a particular group. It is not, for example, allowed for you to utter a word that instructs someone to commit violence against another human. That is not considered to be free speech. Uttering a death threat, even though it's words, is not considered to be free speech. What is considered free speech is obviously political debate, which we want to protect, but we can protect freedom and security at the same time.
How long will the government take before it eliminates the deficit? Like how many years?
I think in the medium term, let's figure out how big the mess the Liberals is, how big a mess the Liberals have made, and then I can tell you how long it will take me to clean it up. My concern is that this is my favorite trick question when we talk about in the middle of a term, how long it will take me to clean up the Liberal mess, because the election could be in 2 or 3 years. The mess could be much bigger than it is right now. And then you'll say, 2 years ago you said you could get rid of the deficit at a certain time, and now it's going to take you even longer. Let's figure out how badly Mark Carney messes up the books before we announce how long it will take for Conservatives to clean it up.
How long should the government take?
Well, it should be yesterday. They should have a balanced budget now.
But you're not even putting a date on when they should have a balanced budget. So how
They
can
should
you
have-
ask the government to do that?
When should they have a balanced budget? They should have a balanced budget all the time, except for in massive national emergencies, which the Liberals have claimed they've been in for 10 years now. So the reality is they should get their spending under control, cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to fake refugees, tax havens, to bring down debt, inflation, and taxes for all Canadians. That's how we make Canada affordable at home, strong at home, and secure at home. Thank you very much, everybody. All right.
For getting his bill passed, sir. Can you congratulate him or not?
Everybody here, yes. Yeah, that was a very tough question. You ask tough questions, you're getting an answer. Yes, I will congratulate Frank Caputo. Here he is. Give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Find out everything he has to say is what I like. I got to go to question period.
Wow, thank you very much. I never thought I would be standing here a number of years ago as a parliamentarian when I was a Crown prosecutor dealing with the scourge of intimate partner violence. Today, we took a gigantic step forward as a country and as a parliament in passing Bill C-225, also known as Bailey's Law, to the Senate. For those who aren't aware, Bill C-225 is one of the largest changes to the law of intimate partner violence in Canadian history. What it will do is when there's a history of coercive control and there's a homicide, that will automatically make the murder first-degree murder. Also, will update the law of evidence. It will create a reverse onus for people who are on peace bonds, who seek bail, and it will also tell people that a person whose criminal record discloses battery of an intimate partner will actually call it violence against an intimate partner rather than just calling it assault. Right now, it just says assault, whether you beat up somebody at the bar, beat up somebody on the street, or beat up somebody in the context of an intimate relationship that's behind closed doors. We know that in the latter instance, people end up dead at a disproportionate rate. I'm so proud to be the sponsor of this bill, named after Bailey McCourt, whose abuser killed her about 3 hours after he was convicted of abusing her in court on bail. So this is for Bailey's family. I can't name them all, but we remember Trish, Shane, Karen, Debbie, Paige, her children. We also remember Carrie Weeb. She's often forgotten. Carrie was in the vehicle with Bailey at the time and is still recovering.
Come to the nub of the matter. You've got the Liberal members and the Bloc or whomever to get a majority, to get your private member justice bill passed in this Parliament. How did you do that, sir?
With a lot of hard work. I couldn't have done it without Bailey's family. I couldn't have done it without my staff. If you actually...
Sir.
No,
or somebody else.
No,
you
we
didn't have the
cooperated.
numbers.
We actually cooperated. If you go back and look at the first speeches, If you go, the Liberals didn't sound like they were going to support this bill. They essentially said, no, this bill, we can do something better. It was through hard work, through collaboration. We went to the Status of Women Committee. We touched hearts, both across Canada and across the aisle. I think that's how you get things done in a parliament, whether there's a minority or a majority.
To any members of Bailey's family since this passed, and what did they say?
I have sent text messages to a number of people who are stakeholders, both within Bailey's family and outside of Bailey's family. I believe they're grateful, but we can't forget they're still in mourning. They lost somebody 8 months ago. It takes a really long time when a loved one is killed so brutally. The least we can do is rush this through the Senate so that Bailey's Law can become law as quickly as possible, and I hope the Senate hears that exhortation.
Are you worried about any holdups in the Senate at all?
Well, there's always potential for holdups, but we're going to keep on working. This is half the battle. I've talked to a couple of senators that sounds like they're going to be critics. We've already got to Senator Batters, who's going to be the bill's sponsor. So it's not like we just rest today, raise a glass of champagne and claim victory. No, this is the end of the beginning. Until this bill becomes law, preferably, when I say law, it gets royal assent, we will not rest. I will not rest. My Conservative colleagues will not rest. And I don't think victim advocates are going to rest until we see this through to royal assent, preferably before June.
Strike a deal with the Liberals, or they agreed to support this without any conditions attached?
Nope. No, we agreed to amendments, and those amendments were agreed to between myself and the government and our party, and they had to go through report stage. But in terms of a quid pro quo, I give you this, you give that, I had nothing to do with that.
About collaboration in Parliament, does this encourage you that maybe more Conservative bills or bills from private members' bills, which are notoriously hard to pass, will get passed with support of all parties? Is it a more do you think you would have been able to do this in the previous Parliament?
Well, actually, I wrote the bill to change the name of child pornography to child sexual abuse and exploitation material. Because I was low in the lottery, I gave it to my colleague Mel Arnold, and that bill itself passed. So what this tells us is that when we have good ideas, they can pass. Now, I've also seen a number of really good ideas that didn't pass. We had 4 votes that were voted against by the government, including on parole ineligibility. One that's a real head-scratcher was from Rachel Thomas that said that if you sexually assault more than one victim, you should be doing consecutive time for that. That is an eminently reasonable bill. I have no idea why the government voted against it. So on one hand, I'm deeply heartened. On the other hand, I still say there's lots of work to be done.
Have they asked you to floor cross?
I'm not going anywhere. I think everybody has been approached, whether jokingly or not jokingly. I'm not going anywhere. I was elected as a Conservative. I'm proud to be a Conservative, and I will stay a Conservative.
Who approached you? Will you say? How do you do it? Text? Call?
I don't usually text with members of the opposite party.
How are you feeling the amount of time you spent with Bailey's family and the advocacy to be able to kind of at least get the bill to this stage, knowing that it still has to go through Senate? And how are you just feeling as a member being able to do something like this?
It's a bit surreal. I'm the child of immigrants. My parents came to Canada with nothing, and here I am with the ability to go stand on the green carpet behind me and influence Canadian law with the help of Bailey's family and Bailey's loved ones. On the one hand, I'm elated, but on the other hand, I'm mindful of the mourning that Bailey's family is going through. It shouldn't take somebody's brutal murder in order for us to change the law. But in order to change the law, we have to change societal attitudes that allow intimate partner to flourish and be a scourge that happens behind closed doors. And that's currently the case. It's the same with sexual offenses. We are currently denying the pervasiveness of intimate partner violence, of sexual offenses against children. I prosecuted all of these offenses. I can tell you they happen far more than we are willing to admit, and it's up to us in Parliament to address that here and now. This is one small step forward. It's a significant step, but I can tell you that I won't take my foot off the gas pedal until we take more steps.
One last question.
Would you call intimate partner violence?
Yes.
Specifically about, is it just killing of a cop that's elevated to first-degree murder automatically? Is there anything else?
Planned and deliberate is first degree. Killing of a peace officer, it's not just police. Killing of a peace officer is first degree. And killing in the course of an offense like sexual assault, robbery is also first degree murder. So this would be the 4th category.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Bonjour. Bonjour, bien contente d'être avec vous. Moins contente par contre d'y être parce qu'on vient juste de voter à l'instant avec la nouvelle majorité en Chambre sur un bâillon. Donc ça donne le ton pour ce qui s'en vient à la Chambre des communes. Un petit retour en arrière. Le Parlement était minoritaire, vous le savez, et malgré tout, c'était